Jason Avant going to join us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We'll talk to him a little bit about the upcoming Eagle season. You know, he was a part of a lot of teams that made some deep runs. What's it like having that hangover, getting back to camp, and all of a sudden, boom, it hits you that the season is here. You know, Eagles football is back a week from Thursday. Crazy to think. They'll be playing the Steelers. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And Jason joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline to look at the 2018 Eagles season. Jay, how you been, pal?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Very good. It's nice to have football back, I guess. And, man, the offseason is a lot shorter when your final game is in February.
It definitely is. I'm so glad to have football back. I'm tired of watching cornhole on television right now. So, and table tennis. I'm ready to get some football going here.
Well, I think the first, give us a little bit of insight on. You know, you were on some teams that made some deep runs, and I know didn't ultimately get a Super Bowl championship, but played in a lot of meaningful big games deep into the season. When you get back to that first week of training camp. After those long, does that take a little bit of a toll when that offseason's a little shorter?
Well, their offseason with this, in my experience, deep runs definitely make the offseason shorter, but it pales in comparison to what happened here in Philadelphia this past year with them winning it all. The city was so hungry for so many years, so they're being pulled in so many different directions. In the radio business, the Eagles is the number one thing, and television in this area is number one thing. And to get an Eagle into your store for an appearance, everything is at an all-time high. So these guys are being pulled in a million different directions. So those are some of the pitfalls of winning the Super Bowl, and also being prepared and ready to be focused for camp and for the upcoming season. The good thing is that you have a bunch of guys that are mentally tough. You can't overcome all of the devastation and injuries and all the things that they had to go through last year without being mentally tough. So they have a team that's built on mental toughness. So if anyone can do it, I know that this team can. So I think that they'll be ready. And also you got a bunch of hungry guys. You got Carson coming back. You got Darren Sproles coming back. You got Jason Peters coming back. These guys you want to be a part of being on the field and winning the Super Bowl, so no one can say, oh, we won it without you. So that's in their mind, in the back of their mind, even though they're team guys. So you got the hungry people at the right positions in order to propel the team forward for this year.
Yeah, that's a great point of all the guys coming back. And, we were in the Super Bowl talking. Nick Foles was in charge of this team. How do you think the dynamic will work with handing it back? I mean, it seems like Nick is the perfect guy to kind of handle this situation. But I remember talking in the offseason where, we were talking about, well, the Eagles should talk to him and maybe see if there's some places he would like to go. And, there were some rumors that there were some offers out there, but ultimately they kept him. How do you think that dynamic will work?
I think that dynamic is Nick is a great guy, and he's the perfect guy for this situation. And that's the great thing about having good people in your organization. To have a guy like Nick is a bonus for the Eagles in so many different ways. This hasn't happened in NFL history where the Super Bowl winning quarterback is riding the bench for the foreseeable future with the Eagles. So it just doesn't happen. And you need a certain character. You need a selfless character in order to do that, and they have Nick for that. Will it be hard? Yes, because we're depending on Carson. We don't necessarily know how healthy he'll be. I know from having the same injury that it usually takes you about a year before you feel like yourself. Now, he's a quarterback, and he doesn't have to run around like I did. So we know that his 60% is better than most people's 100%. But at the same time, having Nick as a backup helps this team out a bunch. But at the same time, just rest assured that he wants to play. And this city in Philadelphia, I love this city, love the fans. But if Carson goes out there and plays bad, you're going to get calls for Nick. And you have to think about those things. So it's not Nick and Carson that it will be a problem with. It'll be a problem with the city. It'll be a problem with the locker room. It'll be a problem with the organization. That's why I'm hoping that Carson is ready to go when he gets in there, because you don't want him to lose confidence, because he definitely is a franchise quarterback. and he's the quarterback for the Eagles, but I don't necessarily want him looking over his shoulders because he's not ready to play yet. So I would rather him wait until he's ready to play than put him in there and then he loses confidence when people ask for Nick.
Yeah, we're talking with Jason Avant, and I guess '06. So I guess you were a rookie, right? That's right about the time. Was that the Garcia year?
Oh yeah, that surely was when Don went down and Jeff was in there. Jeff was something else. He was dynamite.
Right, and then I guess the next year, I mean, I always said, like, the Eagles, even if they wanted to keep Garcia around, they almost couldn't. It would be anarchy if Donovan went out there and struggled the way Jeff played and the way that he was embraced by the city so quickly that it would have been anarchy if Donovan had not played well and Jeff was still on the sidelines here.
Yeah, and it's similar, but it's even tenfold because of the Super Bowl. So, I would say it's similar, and I would take the tenfold part back because we know that Carson has proven himself. He would have been an MVP last year if he wasn't hurt. He has the age factor on his side. There's so many different things that he has that was different from the Donovan and Jeff. Both of them are older in their career, and Donovan had a few years of not playing stellar football. So Jeff's situation, the whole team embraced him, the whole city embraced him, the organization embraced him. And at the same time, the two characters and personalities were different as well. Donovan was a different character and personality than Carson and Nick Foles as well as Jeff Garcia. So I think that you got the right character people in order for it to work. So do I think it can work? Yes, but it's going to be a lot of trouble ahead, and there's a lot of questions to be answered and a lot of media attention that's going to come out of it. Do I think that they'll weather the storm? Yes, because they've shown themselves to be mentally tough.
Yeah, Jason Avant's with us. And you mentioned that you had this injury. Donovan had the injury too, but Wentz had the injury in December. Would you be surprised if he's ready to go by week 1?
I would be surprised if he's ready to go week 1. I know that. I think that the chances are higher that he is ready for week 1. Just me personally, I think that the organization should step in and kind of restrain him, because we're talking, 10 of the way quarterback. If you're good, look at Brady and Breeze and Roethlisberger. Well, these guys are playing 15, 16, 18, 20 years. So you don't want to sacrifice a year for 17. So I would literally. And that's the difference between our game, the NFL, and the NBA. The NBA understands the value of the players long term. We are so nearsighted in our game that it actually hurts us long term. So I would think that the organization should make sure that he's ready 100% before he goes out there and you give it over to him. And he's a competitor. He's going to go out there. He wants to show everybody that, this was his team. And you don't want to put it in his hands and him hurt himself.
2006, you were a rookie, so you got 2 years with Brian Dawkins, who's going to go in the Hall of Fame. Now, I know you were an offensive player. He was a defensive player, but I got to ask what it was like being a teammate of Brian Dawkins.
Oh, absolutely, positively my favorite teammate of all time. And I know the answer wouldn't be reciprocated, but that doesn't mean anything, right? But me personally, my favorite teammate of all time. Just because when I was a rookie, Brian would always be the last person in the locker room. So I would always sit there and be there with him. When he was doing cold tub, I would sit there in the cold tub with him. When he was in the hot tub, I would get in the hot tub with him. I would just follow him around like a little puppy. He would do a little extra weight training, I would do a little extra weight training. And I would ask him questions, and he was so giving. He didn't have to, but he would talk to me about the importance of taking care of my body. He would talk about, the importance of being prepared in meetings, the importance of saving your money, the importance of different aspects of life. And I thought it was a mentoring role, and he didn't have to do it knowing his future and also where he was at the time. So I thought of him as a giving person. Also, he was a stand-up guy, and you didn't have to worry about him week after week. There's a lot of teammates that you have over the years that you don't know what they're doing away from the team. You don't know what if they're preparing well. You know that Brian Dawkins is going to be the same person week in and week out, and that's the only thing that you can ask for as a teammate, Maz, if you're a coach, is that you want a consistently good player all the time, and that's what he was for so many years. The heartbeat of the team, sacrificed so many different things in order to remain here. And that's the thing. Brian could have went so many different places, but he was loyal to the Eagles all the way into the end. And it was a blessing being around him.
Jason Avant is our guest here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, and Brian Dawkins going to go into Canton for the Hall of Fame. His speech should be epic this weekend. Yeah. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about his time in Philly. Now, a lot of
between Brian Dawkins and Ray Lewis, we may be there about 3 hours.
That's a good point. I guess I guess no T.O. He's not going to speak at that, which is a bizarre situation with that whole situation. But if you would have added him to that speech, you could have been there a whole day.
Right. All right. Would have been all about how everybody did him wrong.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So this year's team, you mentioned it. Hicks, you got Peters, you've got obviously Wentz. I mean, there's a lot of guys who were key players coming back, but there's a reason why I think only 5 teams in the last X amount of years have been able to repeat as champions. What is going to be the biggest challenge in repeating for this bunch?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge is thinking about repeating is one big problem. Because you don't go into a season. Football players and athletes in general focus on small details. If you focus on small details day in and day out, it usually puts you on the right trajectory to win. And I think about winning, focus on winning the game, focus on executing the game plan, focus on footwork, those things each day, and it'll put you in position to win. Also, when you consider that, they're going to be playing teams that are hungry, that are trying to prove themselves that they can compete with the Eagles. So it's going to bring in a lot of, dirty play. It's going to bring in a lot of amped up, out of your mind, psyched up, teams playing really well against the Eagles. So those are things that are challenges to them repeating. But the thing that I love about their situation, they have a bunch of mentally tough guys. They have a bunch of guys that are still trying to prove themselves. They have a young team. And with that being said, I think that their team is built for this, because if you can get on a little run and you can make the playoffs, all the advantage goes to the Eagles, right? Because you're dealing with a bunch of young teams in NFC that hadn't been to the playoffs before or been there one time, young quarterbacks, all of these different things. And those teams don't have the experience. So if you can get to the playoffs and hopefully have a game or home field advantage for a few games, you're going to put yourselves in position for teams to make mistakes. And the Eagles, after winning the whole thing, the Super Bowl, they're not going to be one of those teams that beat themselves. And that's the thing about the playoffs, that you see the same teams in the playoffs every year, it seems like, because those teams have learned how not to beat themselves. And the Eagles have graduated to that category. So I think they'll be fine if they can play well enough to get to the playoffs and have a game or two with home field advantage.
One of the steadier wide receivers in his time with the Eagles, Jason Avant, 2006 to 2013. He played here in Philadelphia, and hopefully the Eagles give us another memorable season, as when I ran into Jason in Minnesota at the Mall of America. We were getting ready for what seemed to be the biggest moment in Eagles history, them winning the Super Bowl, and maybe we will get to chance to meet again in Atlanta, Jason. We appreciate a couple minutes, and hopefully throughout the football season we'll be able to catch up with you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. You all have a great day, and go Birds.